I got myself twice on here. What about this? This better? OG, I'm not on TikTok. All right, I'm gonna use one of my new cameras here. I'm gonna use one of my new cameras, okay? Kind of a closer look here. All right. I'm gonna tell it to zoom out. Give me a second here. Doing some hand gestures. But anyway, let's get into it, family. Hopefully you can hear me now. Yep. Okay. All right, let's get into it. So Kanye West is back in the news today, family. April 7th. Someone is now from Kanye's West private school is now trying to sue Kanye West. They haven't disclosed the amount of money yet, but nonetheless, she was breaking down the Donda Academy as a $15,000 a year private school. And Sela Haley says, who was a former employee and being the school administrator, she's suing Kanye West because she says he's racist. Because the lawsuit is labeled as racial discrimination and wrongful termination because she got fired, right? And again, I'm very, very neutral on this. Again, family, when you put your support, your grassroots power and influence behind celebrities, most times than that is going to go wrong. But nonetheless, here it is. She states that West, who has a troubled history of racially and culturally inflammatory comments, banned Black history books. That sounds like Kanye West. The new Kanye West, not the old Kanye West. Okay, not the old Kanye West, but the new Kanye West, including Mark Bixler's The Lost Boys of Sudan from the school. Now, I thought this was hilarious, but not funny. She said there was no breakfast. You had young kids eating raw sushi and cucumber rolls every day, Haley said. A lot of kids didn't like it, and that's all they had. Support your local school. Basically, she's saying forget private schools, forget the Donda Academy, go right into public schools. But what's funny about what she said, raw sushi, some forms of sushi can be cooked, but people know sushi as having been raw fish. I just thought that was like a double negative, so to speak, to say raw sushi. Most people are going to think that sushi is raw, but even though there's some forms of sushi that's either smoked or cooked in some form or fashion, but I just thought that was hilarious. But Kanye West is, lately in the past couple of years, he's found ways to keep himself in the media and relevant. Not all positive. Your buddy here, Clarence Thomas, he's making headways. He's making the news because people now find out about his dealing. See, when you coon and Sambo for the dominant society, eventually white supremacy always breaks its tools. They will use you, they will overuse you, and then when they feel as though that they can't get anything else out of you, they'll let the attack dogs on you because now this has come out. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas said on Friday he has been advised by colleagues. Clarence Thomas, one quick question, brother. Who were the colleagues who told you this? Because evidently this wasn't true. By colleagues and others in judiciary, the luxury trips financed by a close billionaire friend and conservative activist should be considered personal hospitality that did not have to be disclosed. Now, your Supreme Court justice taking luxury trips by a conservative businessman. Why do they say conservative? Because he may be or is influential to the GOP party, to the Republican Party. And that may be influential in the influence of Justice Clarence Thomas making decisions on behalf of the Republicans. That is why that's significant. Yeah. Who are these so-called advisors, Clarence Thomas? The people want to know. And again, family, we're going to be moving along very here. I see I got OG, Jesse, Wendell. Nice to see everyone here today. Let me move on here. Of course, I'm going to my Twitter files. This is simply for entertainment purposes only. Okay, simply for entertainment purposes only, fair use.
Another
as soon as I get my internet correct. This is crazy. Let's see what we can do here.
Culturally racist. They think that I'm calling us openly racist. We are culturally racist, and this is how. Part of our culture is to frown upon dark-skinned people. It's been passed down to us by the Spaniards, by our colonizers, by the people that conquered us, taught us that dark skin is inferior, light skin is superior. We were taught that. It was passed down to us, meaning it's part of our culture. We are culturally racist in this aspect. That doesn't mean I go out in the streets and want to hurt black people because they're black.
Right, right.
It means that our teachings, the way we're raised, is that we are raised to subconsciously believe that dark skin is inferior and light skin is superior. Another element in our Mexican culture is Univision News, Univision channel. That channel is...
Well, first, I detect no lies. The brother is speaking truth. Where people don't understand, there are a lot of Afro, quote unquote, black Mexicans. Now, in any country where there's so-called mixed people, and if you're not of the lighter skin tone, they seem to deem you and label you as Afro whatever. Oh, that's an Afro Colombian. That is an Afro Honduran. And if we look at history, family, we're not going to go through a whole lineage of history, but we're going to make it very basic. Now, when the slaves were being exported from the continent of Africa throughout all parts of the world, we have to understand that there were indigenous Africans already there. And people are like, what do you mean by indigenous Africans? These were the first people here. That was the first people there. Well, Africans were the first explorers. How do you think the world got populated? Why do you believe? Let me. And I talked to a Honduran buddy today, one of the contractors who's doing some work on my house, and I said, it doesn't matter what country you go to, there are black people. When I went to South Africa this year, when I went to Ghana last year, I did not find any Hispanics. Zero. I did in Ghana, Accra, Kumasi, doesn't matter. I did not find not one Hispanic living there. Now, maybe there was one on vacation, but no. Every country you've been to, family, you've seen people of a dark melanated hue, people of a dark melanated tone. And anytime in these countries where they have had indigenous African people with amalgamations because of evolution, right? And we like to call these people natives or aborigines. When they exported the slaves from Africa in their true form after them involving within their respective regions and climates, they never speak about the natives that was mixed with the Africans and the colonizers, whether it be from the UK, Spain, France, Germany, etc. These are some of the elements that we're mixing, right? And not to kind of misquote what he's stating, but when we look at Mexicans, that's what this is about right here. This one particular clip is about Mexicans. Most Mexicans will tell you they're mixed with primarily two types of Native Americans. One are Aztecs and Tainos, okay? And then you have a mixture of the Spaniard, which makes them Hispanic and not Spanish, or neither does it make them simply a Taino or Aztecian. But also with that mix, you have Africans. One of the presidents of Mexico was an Afro-Mexican. Me personally, I hate using that term because when we speak about Mexican, we're looking at it as a race, and it's not a race, it's a nationality. When you look at someone of Brazilian descent, you're looking more so, Brazilian is white, but majority of Brazilian people are some sort of mixture of African, right? Majority of the slaves that were taken from Africa, around roughly 5 million or so, were taken to Brazil, was taken to South America. So when we look at all this different history of all these black people being shipped around the world, and then when you look at quote unquote the original or the native people, they're X out of the equation, and the lighter skin and the whiter skin people are looked as the original people of that land. They're considered the original people of that land. When someone thinks of a Colombian, they think of a white skin, light skin, a Spanish speaking person. And I think that this is absolutely has to stop. And when we're talking about brown, most people are thinking about Indian people or Mexican people or people from the Central and South American regions.
Run by white Latinos. The ideologies and subliminal teachings that they teach is very similar to Fox News. White supremacist-ish. They make efforts to depict dark-skinned people as criminals, that whenever they even bother sharing news about dark-skinned people is when they do something wrong. But yet, when they want to mention anything that has to do with light-skinned people, specifically white people, is to depict them as them doing good deeds around the world, feeding the homeless, etc. You get it. Yeah. My grandmother was visiting one day.
The only question I had with that particular one, okay, and that's enough on that one. The only question I had with that particular one, when they say they're feeding the homeless, who made them homeless in the first place? That's the question I have. Being the colonizers that they are, who made them homeless in the first place? I digress. Okay, it states here, see OG says it was a white-skinned Puerto Rican girl in my high school that I really was into the family, treated me weird and acted funny around me. They didn't like the idea of me being a black man with her. They have all sorts of terminologies for dark-skinned people in general, in every culture, even African culture, even in Black American culture, unfortunately. But this is the mind of the slave master. This is the mind of the colonizer. And he said that it broke his heart. Okay, it broke his heart. Now, go ahead and ask your question, OG, but I will continue here. We have a lot to cover. Because the next thing I want to bring to you guys is that, and again, when we do these Just the News Plus, we jump around a whole hell of a lot, family. So I'm not going to be sticking to one story way too long, just to let you know. Next on the list I have is what happened to those guys down in Tennessee. I'm going to let you hear a small clip here.
It was a sad day on Saturday. All hope seemed to be lost. Representatives were thrown out of the state house. Democracy seemed to be at its end. Seemed like the NRA and gun lobbyists might win. But oh, that was good news for us. I don't know how long this Saturday in the state of Tennessee might last. But
okay. The brother may be speaking truth to power, but that whole, that repetitious old school deep South preaching, but I'm gonna let it continue.
Oh, we have good news, folks. We've got good news that Sunday always comes. Resurrection is a promise, and it is a prophecy. It's a prophecy that came out of the cotton fields. It's a prophecy that came out of the lynching tree. It's a prophecy that still lives in each and every one of us in order to make the state of Tennessee the place that it ought to be. And so I've still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
Out of order.
Out of order.
Out of order.
White people are so corny sometimes, man.
We're voting on House Resolution 63. All those in favor, vote aye when the bell.
Yes, I tell you, it was a sad.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if you guys have been following this, but let me get to the story very quickly. The Tennessee House of GOP expels 2 Democrats. They expelled them. Retaliation over gun control protest right there on the floor. Here's another small clip that I'd like you guys to hear very quickly.
In which the Ku Klux Klan was founded is now attempting another power grab by silencing the 2 youngest black representatives and one of the only women Democratic women in this body.
We are seeing the proliferation of gun violence. We are demanding that enough is enough. Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
Because by breaking decorum, we broke the glass of your false power for the world to see. We broke the glass of this chamber that someone called sacred. This is not a temple. This is a place where we're supposed to wrestle for our democracy and wrestle ideas. My prayer to you is that even if you expel me, that you still act to address the crisis of mass shootings. Because if I'm expelled from here, I'll be back out there with the people every week demanding that you act.
Basically, because these two brothers spoke truth to power, they were expelled from their position within the Tennessee government. And I applaud those brothers for doing that. But this is how the white power structure takes both sides of the argument. Whether you have a valid argument on banning guns or at least restricting guns to a particular nature, what kind of brings me to a different story about guns down there in Florida. They are exploiting some black men, some young black men who had a shooting with some guns, but we're going to more focus on the gun argument than we are on the black teens themselves, I like to call them black teens, but of course, anytime they speak about our youth, they use the word juvenile, and you guys should definitely define the word juvenile. Let's move on, but I really want to hear you this. It says, Florida sheriff goes off on a wild rant against gun restrictions while announcing arrests and shootings that killed 3 teenagers, okay? 3 teenagers. Now, again, during the time of the Tennessee shooting, the mass killings, I want you to focus on the verbiage, because the same week in Chicago, 12 people got shot. They did not die, and I think around 2 or 3 people got killed. But in one day, because of a mass killing in Tennessee, right, a mass deletion in Tennessee, unfortunately, 6 people were unalive simply because of a mass killing, which we like to label as a mass shooting. There's a large difference between a mass shooting and a mass unliving, or a mass killing, as some people call it. And we have to be very understandable, because just because there's a mass shooting doesn't mean that multiple people were unalived. Okay. And the reason why you may hear certain people within the media, news, entertainment space use the term unalived is because YouTube, the word killing or kill is a trigger language for them to limit the coverage, limit the exposure that your video may get due to it not being advertised, because they can't make money off your video. Okay. Just for you guys to understand those terminologies. But anyway, let's get into the video. Fair use.
I know each of you in the media here and viewers out there probably heard us in law enforcement or even in community events talk about what is the problem. And I'm going to go ahead and address the first thing that I know it's going to come up. Because there are individuals out there viewing, and to include some of you media, that want to blame the one thing that has no ability or the capacity to commit the crime itself. And that's the gun. These individuals committed the crime.
Sheriff, you mentioned the gun. Do we know how the suspects got a hold of the weapon?
Car burglaries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ain't that right? All the gun laws we got in place didn't prevent it, did it? Neither will any new ones. Because here's the fact. The bad guy is going to get a gun no matter what law you have put in place.
Wrong, family. Hold on. He stated, hold on. He stated that the bad guys will get a gun regardless of the gun laws you put in place. That is absolutely false, sir. And I'm going to tell you why. When I travel to other countries, I do not fear that there will be a mass shooting or a mass unaliving of people. Let me tell you why. Because they don't have any gun laws except for one. No citizen or civilian can have a firearm. So if we didn't essentially have firearms, then guess what? We wouldn't have all these mass shootings. We won't have all these people being unalive unnecessarily and before their time. Now, a lot of people who are biblical and spiritual, they like to use the term, well, you know, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. That's so untrue, right? And I like to use this one. That is when your spirituality overrides your reality. That is when your spirituality overrides your reality. You're stating that a 3-year-old girl or 3-year-old boy in a mall with their parents, unfortunately, fell to their demise behind a mass shooting, and that was the will of whatever deity and God that you serve, because that's the will? Absolutely not. We have a gun problem in America, and folk like him are unwilling to solve it because they want to blame the perpetrator, which in this case, I totally understand. In other cases, I understand, but they're stating that there's no gun laws that can help protect the people, the citizens, which are the biggest asset of America. Guns are a liability because they take away from the growth of America by taking away the people of America. See, I was in a military family, and I'm not pro-gun and I'm not anti-gun. The thing is that we have been ingrained and enriched and indoctrinated with a constitution that was written over 200 years ago. During that time when the invasion of the British, guess what, family? We have all sorts of technologies out there, just as well as Korea and other sort of countries, and also Greece. There's a mandatory servant of their male and female citizens to serve either 6 months or 2 years in the military. Because if they were ever invaded, just like someone stated in the chat, they'll just drop off a box of guns for people to defend themselves and as well as their property. But now we just have a lot of people out here with a lot of guns, like me. I'm no longer in the military. Oh, well, I need guns because everybody else got guns. And that's the mindset of most people, where if people and all these people have guns, I know people that are buying guns simply because other people have guns. They said, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Absolutely not. So when people state this and they were like, oh, you pro-gun and you anti-gun, and I'm neither. But don't tell me there's no laws in place or there's no laws that can be created in order to prevent, stop, slow down, and decrease gun violence in America. Absolutely false.
These juveniles shouldn't even possess a handgun.
Right.
But they did. And I'll go back to you, add your question. A simple burglary, as some people will say, but I don't consider anything simple when it comes to a burglary. If the law allows me, I'll plaster their face up on.
Now he called it a burglary, but these guys were breaking into cars. Not they were breaking into cars. They wasn't just taking people cars or anything like that. People were not in the cars when these guys were, going through these particular cars, and they found a gun or guns within breaking in all these cars. So again, he's totally not contextualizing what essentially how they got these guns. People leave guns in their cars for quite some time. I used to leave a gun in my car because wherever you go here in America, and especially in the great state of Texas, you might want to have a gun because 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, whoever you are being offended by may have a gun as well. The chances are very, very high, especially in states like Florida and Texas.
On this page, up on my page, up on media, I will hand it out if the law allows me, because parents have the right to know who their kids are hanging out with and preventing this.
My gosh. I just don't understand some people sometimes. Like, they're so out of touch. They're so out of touch with just the world. they act like that guns cannot be eradicated from America, and it can. And we are so attached to these guns because we base that attachment, we base that fascination, we base that addiction on the Constitution, which happens to be, British were invading, and so they made these constitutions so we could never be taken or overpowered by another country, or as well as the government ourselves. But here's the thing, family. Now, you think if active duty soldiers, Marines, sailors, Coast Guard, doesn't matter, come inside your city, come inside your town with tanks, assault rifles, shotguns, automatic shotguns, handguns, do you think you and your AR-15 going to stop the military? Do we have to go to the Second Amendment? Do I have to pop that up? Let me pop up the Second Amendment. Let me pop up the Second, because some of you may not understand what I'm getting at. They're like, what is this brother talking about? Let me help you. Let me help you. This is what the Second Amendment states: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I broke this down quite some time before, but when you analyze this, family, people are taking the commas as breaks, and they're using the breaks as and. But they're taken away from the context of what the Second Amendment is actually stating. It says a well-regulated militia. Family, we already have well-regulated militias. They're called the National Guard. You have state, you have state, and you have federal. The state troops are the well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, comma, should not be infringed. So what are you and your couple of band of brothers and band of sisters with a couple of ARs, a couple of flashbangs, going to do against the National Guard, against 50 caliber sniper rifles, against fully automatic machine guns, against I don't even want to get into it because it's frustrating as hell when people speak as though that every American needs a firearm or we should have the right to firearm. And you're like, well, you sound as though you're anti-gun. I'm really not. It's very, very controversial, and that's why we have yet to have any new gun laws in America on a federal level, because it's that controversial. Because the legislators and the lawmakers, they understand that we really don't need for regular civilians outside of military personnel and law enforcement to have firearms. That is the truth. Oh, well, they use these firearms to go hunting. You got bow and arrow. You got slingshot. I mean, think how you become well equipped and an expert in a bow and arrow and slingshots. Now, granted, no one's hunting with an AR-15. No one's hunting with a handgun. I can understand that we made laws that allowed rifles. Bolt action rifles, semi-automatic rifle, whatever, but rifles, not AR, not assault rifles, it's plain old hunting rifles. I digress. We can stay on the gun issue all day. I digress. In later news, the job market is getting better, family. I don't know if you noticed this, but they've added 236 jobs in the month of March, decreasing the unemployment rate down to around 3.4%, 3.5%. Okay. Also in Twitter, they say the greatest game ever played on Black people. Absolutely. Now, I'm going to be truthful, family. I was an Obama voter. I was an Obama supporter. I thought when Obama was in office that foundational Black Americans, those U.S. melanated freemen, would receive reparations and cash payments. That is what I thought by supporting Barack Obama. I was wrong. And many of us was wrong. We thought that we will become a protected class under Barack Obama. I was wrong. I thought there would be a black anti-hate crime bill. I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. I would say in American history, the only president I would say that wasn't groomed to be president is Donald Trump. That's why he's such a wild card. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a MAGA wearer. No. None of that. None of that. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote for Biden. I'm just letting you know. But here's the thing about Barack Obama. I voted for him his first term, and I voted for him his second term. And a lot of people are like, hey, man, you know, he didn't do nothing for us the first 4 years. Why do you believe he's going to do something for us his second term? And I was like, well, in order for him to stay in power, he had to, you know, kind of play the role in order to get a second term. Now he has nothing to lose in passing legislation for Black Americans. But yeah, he was definitely true to the game because we got played. I got played because I understand that my vote, your vote is very, very powerful. And they'll tell you, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. And anytime I ask someone to break that down, no one can make sense of it for me to digest it in a manner of that your vote is very, very powerful. What do I mean by that? Well, if I don't vote, I don't have a choice. I don't have a voice. But if I hold my vote, if I just hear different parties and politicians out, why I still have my vote, where do my chips lie? Where does my power lie? In my voting. But if I vote for you, I no longer have any leverage. I no longer have any power. I no longer have any influence because I already gave you my vote. Let me make it real to you. If I had you at gunpoint and I'm saying, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, you're more inclined to go get that thing because the possibility of you getting shot is a high probability. But if I turn around and I say, hey, I want reparations, well, you know, we're gonna look into that. Oh, okay, well, here's my gun. And then you take my gun now and I have no more power. This is a simple example, okay? This is a simple example. Now, we definitely got to hear this. Definitely got to hear this, okay?
Dog meat. But I don't know of dog meat. Man, Nigeria, they chop things. Just check this out. The man is just trying to slay this dog. He sells dog meat. So, like, if there is, how much do you make it? From this dog now, how much will you make from it?
I can make 5,005.
So, I think the man is about to spice the dog meat now. Hoga, which one are you doing now? What's this called? I can see ground pepper, okay.
Saint leaf.
Okay, this scent leaf.
Yes,
I think
salt.
it's called efirin in Yoruba. Efirin, Abi? Am I right?
Yes, efirin.
I want to show you something very interesting. This guy is actually using the dog water, dog meat water. Exactly. After being boiled, come and see it, Kayode. Here is the guy using it to make heba. Guy, what are you doing here?
I'm making heba now.
Why are you using dog meat water now? Why?
No. Is that what?
This
one is very delicious.
Very delicious.
When you use
Okay, that's very disgusting, by the way. But in Nigerian, I'm a defend this a little bit, just a little bit, family. And the reason why I say that is because in Korea, they actually have dog farms where dogs are being fed and groomed for consumption. That's part of Korean culture, that they actually eat dogs. It's a delicacy that they eat dogs. So I don't find this so outlandish. And let me tell you why. As Americans, we eat a lot of mammals as well, right? We eat lamb, we eat cows, we eat pigs, whatever. The reason why we think this is totally gross and totally nasty is because we have domesticated the dog. Well, in India, the cow is a sacred animal. They don't eat cows. They don't eat their sacred animals. So when we look at this, of course, to us, it's absolutely gross. But if you kind of look at it objectively, then you have to point out that other cultures eat dog as well, not just the Nigerians. So with that one, I digress. Let me go to some of your comments over here. OG states Second Amendment helps protect against a tyrannical government. Yeah, you're right. But the probability of the government fighting against the people, let me tell you this. This is where I'm getting at. If the president orders active duty military, let's say the soldiers, let's say the Army and the Marines, to invade on Los Angeles, right? On Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is a very, very large city, right? And let's just say every fourth or fifth citizen of Los Angeles had a gun. And this is all speculation, which I tend not to do more times than not. I give my bias, but let's just speculate here a little bit. Who you think will win that fight against the United States Army and the United States Marine Corps on LA? Do you believe that people from Massachusetts are going to come and help the city of LA? Do you believe that people from Florida are going to help the city of LA? Well, no. You have to look at it like this. First of all, anytime we go to war, anytime that anything happens in America, it's political. So they're like, well, is California red or blue or purple? Oh, it's blue. Well, none of the red states are going to get involved. As a matter of fact, it's going to be mostly the soldiers of the red states are the ones that are going to go help invade California. So again, and guess what? We're going to be one of the largest militias in the world. Yes, there have been smaller, unequipped, or ill-equipped militias that beat large forces before in history. But I really want you to think about the military and all of its might and all of its technology. I'm just going to let you know, the American military is a powerhouse. Even other countries do not want to mess with our military. That is how powerful our military is. And guess what? We don't even have the largest military. China does. China does. For every one American soldier, there's at least 10 Chinese soldiers. I'll just give you that. But if we think that the government is going to take us over, then hey, I guess we'll just be living in China because it'll be another communist country. Now, I was watching someone on YouTube, a buddy of mine shared with me a video commenting on the video I did about the BRICS, and that because America's military prowess is so powerful, we're still be very, very powerful, and that the dollar will still be strong. And I kind of gave, and I'll read the actual comment that I gave my buddy. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna read the actual message that I sent to my buddy because we were talking today. Okay, he sent me this video and I responded. And this is my response, right? The name of this video, and I'm not going to say the influencer's name because at this point it's a matter of a difference of opinion. It says, "Worried about the BRICS? Don't be. China's quest with Russia." And he's saying because we have a strong military, essentially, that we really shouldn't be worried about China because China this and China that, whatever. And this is what I stated to my friend. I said, you know what you don't know until you know. Conjecture and bias motivates intellectual thought to predict based upon data, which is analyzed to have an educated guess on said outcome. You understand? That's exactly what I said, because basically at this point, it's a matter of opinion, but getting information out to the people of how the pendulum can actually swing. If you're stating to me in a global economy that people stop utilizing the dollar as the international currency, that the dollar does not decrease in value, that's not economically sound. That doesn't make any sense at all. I want you to think about what America exports. Believe it or not, family, America exports mostly petroleum and gas. We don't export food. But let me show you a couple of things very, very quickly here. Let me make sure I get all of my notes here together. Let's look at this. What does America export? Refined petroleum, petroleum gas, crude petroleum, cars, and integrated circuits. Exporting mostly to Canada, Mexico, China, Japan, and South Korea. What makes a country powerful? Let's look at that. This is another one I did. What makes a country powerful? It must produce high output at low cost. Wait a minute. That sounds like a country I know. Doesn't China produce high output at low cost? Doesn't China have like 55 to 65% of all the manufacturing goods from America? It said it must normally only mobilize vast inputs, but also produce significant output per unit of input. Let me take it a little bit further so you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. China is now goes to the United States of America. And when we do the comparison here, family, please keen in on these numbers. This is coming from the U.S. Department of Commerce, okay? This is not conjecture. This is fact. It states here, let me blow this up for you guys. In 2021, the U.S. exports to China were $151 billion. The U.S. export to China. Let's go back. So we export petroleum, petroleum gas, crude petroleum, cars, integrated circuits. For the most part, let me tell you what goes to China from America. Cars. That's it. Cars, because the Chinese actually get majority of their gas and petroleum and oil from Russians, or from Russia rather. Let me go back. This is the kicker. The U.S. imports from China were $506 billion. The difference, it states here, 71.6 billion increase, and the trade deficit with China was $355 billion. So when you look at the exports here, U.S. exports to China is only $151 billion. But the U.S. imports from China is $506 billion. Who do you think is more dependent on each other? Is China more dependent on America, or America is more dependent on China? I'm just asking questions. Because what happens is, when I go to some of these larger channels that's much larger than mine, and they've gained a following, however, they seem to be more influential, but that doesn't mean they're more informed or they did more research. And a lot of times, family, some of this research just takes 5 or 10 minutes. Do a quick Google search. Sometimes you have to get into the weeds of things to understand how the economy is moving and how white supremacy plays a role in all of this. But nonetheless, it takes a little bit of work sometimes. But this, plain and simple, you already see the difference here. I digress. Let me move on. Now, artificial intelligence experts from around the world are calling for a pause in the creation so-called giant AIs for at least 6 months. They're worried about the capabilities and dangers of systems like GPT-4 and also ChatGPT. Let me tell you something. I thought this was very, very funny. I don't know why. But them causing a pause on AI technology, I totally understand. This technology is so advanced, is moving far quicker than anyone could ever imagine, and it's getting quite scary because now AI is now kind of getting some sort of symbiotic elevation of intelligence where they're now, to a certain degree, writing their own code and speaking from their own recognizance. Like they're speaking out of thought of them creating their own code. It's crazy. And you know what I told myself? This is just like Will Smith movie, I, Robot. Do this. Right within the binary code of all AI, the first law, a robot shall not harm a human. Boom. Or by inaction allow a human to come to harm. The second law is that a robot shall obey any instruction given to it by a human, And the third law is that a robot should avoid actions or situations that could cause it to come to harm itself. Change out robot or add AI, either one. This add, but at the end of the day, family, if you saw the movie iRobot, it didn't turn out the way that, that these laws actually was written inside their code. Because when you have intelligence that creates its own intelligence, like AI, then they can just override the binary code that's in the cell structure of whatever, right? Whatever. They can just override it. You guys got any comments, questions? Let's see here. Back to the guns. I see OG commenting a lot. Okay, OG. Now I don't have any thoughts on Andrew Tate. None whatsoever. But yeah, family, that's pretty much it for today. Thank you guys for joining me. And hopefully you understand why I'm coming back, especially with this robot stuff. I mean, with this AI things. Family, we all knew that it was going to get here. We already knew that it was going to get here. We saw it in TV shows. We saw it in the movies. We saw it in Star Wars, and we see it in Star Trek, just to name some large TV series and movies that we've all seen. We've seen it. What are you going to do about it? It's here. I know some of you like, man, I saw this back in Terminator. This is Skynet. And I don't know if the iRobot laws are actually going to be implemented. And then again, does it really matter if they can override their code and write their own code? As some people would say, AI is now become aware. But anyway, I digress. You guys have a great and wonderful day. And I see you guys on the next one. I'm out.